Hello, and welcome back to Rhetoric 306 at the University of Texas. It is still me, Dr. Jennifer Sapio, and I'm really excited to move forward with our final project 4 for this course. Our next and final assignment together. We have worked through the water quality project together for project 1. You individually researched a huge document set of 8 to 10 sources on a topic of your choice for project 2. Then you move forward with that proposal that you just turned in or are getting turned in today. Thank you all so much for your careful thinking and your clear thinking and careful proposing of a solution there to the problem that you have researched this semester. I can't wait to see what suggestions you have for actions that we can take to actually practically institute change on issues that affect each of us every day. So thanks again for your Project 3 work. Now for Project 4, we're going to move forward into the multimodal form of communication, not just the traditional written essay assignment. So our last rhetoric and writing assignment for this semester will not be an essay. So let's go ahead and take a look at the assignment instructions or a quick overview, and then we'll move on to the assignment instructions on Canvas. Okay, so here's the overview. For Project 4, you are going to develop a multimedial argument. And this is going to be of your choice, depending on, again, that expanded rhetorical situation where you're trying to perfectly fit or match the message, and who you are as a communicator to your intended audience, as you did for Project 3. And so as you continue considering how you can be most effective and persuasive with your opinion here, with your proposal, in sharing vital information that you feel needs to reach a larger audience, what is going to be the best modality? And that's going to depend for each of you. Is a slide deck going to be most appropriate in sharing your message? Or is creating a video or sharing a podcast, some form of audio content, or an infographic, a mixed visual and textual form? You are going to need to, again, think through your rhetorical situation and match the exigence, that kind of timely need for communication to your content. Are you going to need to create a social media post or an interview, a kind of talking head video, a YouTube piece? You tell me. The options are wide open here for your selection of a multimedial argument, and I cannot wait to see these come together. Let's head over to the Canvas course website and check out the specifics of this assignment for clarity before we move into some concepts and some best tips for composing these yourselves. So on the Canvas course website, I have navigated to the modules tab. I'm scrolling down to our next and final unit for developing a multimedial argument. Here are the links we're going to take a look at today. They're already populated, and as you can see, we have a lot to get to today, looking at some example infographics, getting some best strategies for how to avoid death by PowerPoint, and then introducing you all to a couple of tools for composing visual textual compositions yourselves. But for now, let's take a look here at the Project 4 assignment instructions. And as you can see, this is due upcoming in 2 weeks. This is, relatively speaking, the least weighted of your 4 project assignments. And so it is 10% of your total course grade, and therefore given the least time in the course, although still a really important opportunity for you to practice composition in a variety of media. So, excuse me, we'll read the instructions here. It says, up to this point, you have written essays in this rhetoric and writing class, but really importantly, essays are not the only and often not the best way to convey your argument. Is that heretical to say? Pardon me, if so. Let's face the facts that often in your daily life, in fact, I bet that you are not primarily consuming traditional written essays as your primary mode of information intake, right? Are you watching videos? Are you, downloading your professor's PowerPoint slides? Are you listening to podcasts as you're walking to class, right? There are other ways that communicators are expressing themselves and reaching larger audiences, and now is your chance in the class to practice in those formats. So in this final assignment, you are going to re-represent your argument from Project 3, but this time, in a multimedia composition that can reach a different audience or exigence. That is, you will develop a multimedia composition to overview the controversy and propose your course of action. You're going to practice skills described in our textbook, Nicotra's Becoming Rhetorical, in chapters 14 through 15, which I'm going to assign today. And for a reminder, your composition can be your choice. It can be a slide deck, a video, a podcast, a website, or some other format. Please feel free to email me and talk to me about other ideas if you want to pitch those. It should present the sources that you consulted or either embedded or linked, so you can back up where you're getting your information from. And we're going to take a look at several examples today and next time, but also just for your reference, you can see a few example arguments in the form of videos, podcasts, infographics, or even websites, data dashboards, for example, the COVID-19 Disability Rights Monitor. So that is where we are headed for these final weeks of the course together. And let's go ahead and take a look at a few concepts from chapter 4 and chapter 14, which are your reading for this week. Next week, if you're trying to get ahead or looking forward, we are doing chapter 5 and chapter 15. So 4 and 14 for this week, 5 and 15 for next week. We're talking about visual rhetoric this week and multimodal compositions next week. So meet me over at the slides for a few key concepts from our textbook. Okay, so I said it was perhaps heretical in a rhetoric and writing class, although it shouldn't be. The fact is clear in psychological studies and elsewhere. The truth effect of realistic photography and images, we in fact believe what we see. This is part of human nature. And so therefore, that heretical claim that I made, which is in a rhetoric and writing course, we need to face the facts that perhaps standard written traditional essay formats are not always going to be the most convincing or persuasive, and that is built into human nature, in fact. So Photoshop and marketing and the advertising industries takes advantage of our willingness to believe what we see by doctoring images, of course, which has been well discussed in popular culture topic. You all are familiar with the ways in which media and advertising by photoshopping and doctoring images has really changed a whole generation's perception of their bodies, right? And so we don't need to go perhaps further into that, but make that connection that the power of images is what you are harnessing in your communication for Project 4. And indeed, the picture superiority effect suggests that images are much easier for readers to comprehend and, in fact, later to recall information than written textual data alone. And so, for example, this infographic created by Forbes representing racial wealth inequality in the US, suggests that, as you can see, the median household wealth by race and ethnicity in the United States is vastly unequal, with white median household wealth estimated in or forecasted in 2024 to be $122,366, down from $161,000 in 2008, and the median household wealth for Latino and Black families at $1,633 and $1,233 respectively. And so this data we can visually and textually grasp in a way that in fact, again, psychological scientific studies have suggested you will be able to comprehend and recall and much more quickly later than if you would have spent the time gathering the same data or understanding the same or inputting the same data via a traditional essay. So we're, again, putting that to good use for our communication strategies in Project 4. Okay, so chapter 4 in your textbook, which is part of your reading assignment for this week, is going to guide you through several elements of visual analysis, okay? Essentially criteria that you can observe and evaluate as you are looking at still or dynamic images, argumentative videos or infographics, essentially. And we are going to look at 2 examples today of both still and moving visual arguments. And so as we look at those, I'd like for you to consider here these various criteria, formal and social, and your textbook has more to say about each. But for formal, you're employing your fine art and, RTF skills here of looking at the lighting and the color, the contrast. Is it low key, pastel and faded coloring, or high key, full saturation, bright color? Do you have a kind of isolated distance created from the subject, or do you have a real proximate kind of intimacy? What is the point of view? First person? Are you looking on from afar? What's the degree of focus? Do you have a soft focus or a kind of clear, crisp image? What's the emphasis in the framing? Do you have a close crop or a wide landscape view. Those are some of the things to consider as you're analyzing others' images and as you're imagining moving forward into composing your own. Also, consider the social elements as well. Your textbook gets into a really interesting conversation about kind of stereotypical and archetypal interpretations of just shapes, kind of curving or rigid, hard shapes, and the social interpretations of those. Also, of course, thinking about how narrative functions, even in still pictures, right? What actions are implied? Are there actors involved? Is it animation? Do we have particular objects of significance? What setting are you going to imagine for your infographic or for your video that you're creating? So these are some things to start to think about. And again, we're going to go and take a look at an example now of an argumentative, dynamic visual piece. Okay, this is from the New York Times OpDoc series, where they are producing short films, essentially argumentative films, employing all of these formal and social elements of visual argumentation. The one we're going to watch now is called Now is the Time, which I think speaks well to this sense of urgency and exigence and trying to meet your audience exactly where they are with this form of communication. And as you're watching it, please think about how the filmmakers are employing lighting and contrast, color and saturation, point of view, narrative, what shapes and objects and their cultural and geographic significance is being employed here as we watch the New York Times OpDoc, Now is the Time. Sorry, let me restart that.
I was so naive on the idea. It was all new. I asked Nani, were there any totem poles raised in the village in her lifetime, and she said no. And she was born in 1895.
Today there are few carpets. This boy may be one of the last.
I saw the old totem poles at the museums, and I saw them in photographs, and I'd come home and there was nothing.
This village here, right from the way down this end of the town, right through here, totem pole. A lot of it in my time. And up in the other village the same way. Missionary says, if they don't get rid of these totem poles, you never go to heaven. That's what the minister told the Indians. They want all the Indians get together, cut all the totem poles down, and burn them up. Cut them all down, cut them in all about 4-foot lengths, something you can lift, and cut them all up and split them and make big fire and burn them. I used to help too, I want to go to heaven.
all children heard the song before they were born, Haida singing. I didn't hear any Haida songs until I was 16.
Dum slnat down slur. Sefgan got sling is stassangas. A tula sangwa.
I would go and visit the elders, and they seemed really kind of not connecting to anything. And I could feel the sadness, and I wanted to create an occasion for them to celebrate one more time. That was the moment I committed to carving the totem pole. After I made the commitment to carve the pole, I had no idea what was involved. And I remember getting a phone call from my dad. He said, I found a log for you. I said, oh yeah, right, I need a log. And I remember not even wanting to look at the log. I was so terrified. And I said, holy shit, when I saw the log. I didn't know how to work on that scale. I was only carving argillite totem poles then.
Think of how bland it would be if we didn't know how to dance. We didn't know how to sing. We didn't know how to carve poles. We need those kinds of things in our life. And they're gifts to everybody.
On one of my trips back home, I knocked on every door in the village in Masset to see if there was anything left from the classical period, see if anybody had anything. And that's when I found one storage box. When I saw it, I was just blown away by it. And I took it home and I put it beside my bed and slept with it. I was so taken by it, by having this one object that survived this whole dark period.
Oh, you're still carving, Robert?
There was really a void, but I didn't realize the scale of that void.
When I learned to carve, I just learned from Robert. He made it easier. He visited all the elders. They taught him the songs and dances. He taught us. He offered me $15 a day. I mean, I was 14 years old. That's a lot of money, right? Working on the pole was a pretty amazing experience for me just because it's all new to me. It's grasping to learn of our culture. These are raven rattles. I had a dream about raven rattles. We use them in our raven dance and they just move.
Spirit of gossip. Gagita is a supernatural being. Chinny talked about Gagita as a person whose spirit is too strong to die. I like to equate our spirit as being too strong to die. That's why we're still here. There was a couple of people that were saying, why do you want to bring those old things back? That really just came from pain, the pain that they went through. I mean, I cried when I heard that, but it didn't stop us. And those same people were there celebrating with us. The village is made up of two clans, Eagle and Raven. To do this, traditionally, either an Eagle clan has the pole raising or a Raven clan. I wanted the whole village to get involved, and the only way to have that is to have both clans working together.
Old Nasset, it's just like a beehive. Everybody from the different clans has their work to do, like the old days.
I remember being one of the pullers on the rope, and Chinny was there guiding us. He said, Robert, that totem pole doesn't belong to you anymore, it belongs to them. So I stepped back. There was a construction crew there, and they had a crane, and they offered to raise the pole with their crane, and I mentioned it in one of the meetings, and they said, no, we're going to do it the old way. I didn't realize how much ceremony was connected to the art until that moment. My grandparents and their generation coming together, and they all told stories, and from those stories, that became the recipe for the pole raising. Uncle Victor said, Robert, Chinny wants to talk with you. So Chinny said, you have to get the tools now and start the ceremony. When I was chanting, I was in a different realm. And it also marked the completion of the pole. I felt really good. I just thought, every time they raised the pole, they said about another 6 inches to a foot. And then they raised it. I thought it was just going to come back down and just fall.
I think it was a good thing. I think it's one of the highlights in my life. And yet the sorrow and knowing that possibly it's gone for good. We're trying to pick up something and hold on to it, but there's maybe not enough to hold on to.
It was ground zero. It couldn't have been timed any better. Some of the old people had sort of was Chinny. He had a toy drum. And some of the old people showed up with paper hit pieces. When I talk about ground zero, you couldn't go any lower because of the laws that governed us, the muting our will to participate in ceremony, participate in our song and dance, the very thing that builds the spirit.
3 generations, and they could work together and make it happen. We're so lucky. That they were there. The pool was important because it was a deliberate action. It was deliberate bringing back that part of our life. The carvers at home, sitting and carving the argillite. It was watching my great-grandmother put old blankets on the windows so that people couldn't see in, and they'd sing the old songs and play the drum. All of that, not just the poor.
I didn't think of it as a start of something. I just saw it as a celebration for the old people. You know, I was just a young, smart aleck kid thinking I was going to teach elders something. When it turned around, it was the other way around.
Okay, so as you saw there in the very deft argument, that now is the time for investing in this country and in the Americas, in preserving and revitalizing indigenous cultures that have been so horrifically oppressed over the past several hundred years. You see these gorgeous examples of the implementation of visual elements here in this New York Times op doc. Okay, so this one premiered and debuted at Sundance, so it's going to be just the highest quality texture. And that was a 16-minute piece. Thank you for your willingness to watch through from beginning to end. And you're going to give your attempt, your small boat. I just mean, it doesn't have to be 16 minutes long. You can do your just lengthwise short version of a visual piece like this if you prefer, if that's your choice, and implement some of those elements that we saw, the lighting in the piece with that dark, that low lit desk where our key figure Robert was sitting there with the spotlight right on his face. We saw the contrast of that low key old footage from the 60s with the high key kind of vibrant contemporary footage of the friends as they grew up. telling the story of working on the totem together. You saw in that piece additionally some very close-up shots of the community as they were raising the pole. You saw the sweat on their face, really intimate perspective. And then you saw those wider angle shots of the whole community working together with those framed joists to raise the pole. So you see examples of those formal elements at work as well as the narrative functioning. You saw interviews with the real folks involved in the story. You saw, of course, the cultural significance and the shape of that object, the totem, indicating the power and legacy and history of the indigenous people in that gorgeous setting with those ocean views as well and the shoreline, really indicating, I think, a wide horizon, a future-oriented perspective as well. So you can see all of that functioning through the visual elements. Again, that was a Sundance debut op doc, and you are going to give your best try in just a shorter 2-week project for your Project 4 assignment. Let's look at just a couple more examples. Let me show you all the, let's see, a couple more concepts to have in mind as we look through a quick infographic example. The CRAP principles of visual design, a helpful acronym, I hope, for you to remember: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity as elements in visual design that you additionally can work to emulate in your own pieces. So I'll show you an example of contrast here, which your eyes will immediately understand that those first top 2 left squares with black writing on white background or white font on black background is going to have a strong contrast and really draw your eyes in a way that those weak contrasts, either dark on dark colors or light contrast, light on light, or obnoxious contrast, as your textbook suggests, complementary colors actually not going too well together, like red and green. And so see if these are helpful kind of rules, if you will, to follow in your own compositions that better contrast red on black background, working really well for the eyes. The other concept that I want to introduce you to, if you haven't already seen this, if you're not familiar with the rule of thirds, is going to be a visual template for organizing compositions, infographics, PowerPoint slides following either the vertical rule of thirds, where you want to position your main figure to draw the reader's attention from left to right, top to bottom, or vice versa. You've got the horizontal rule of thirds. This is going to be familiar to your eyes from any landscape portrait you've ever looked at your entire life, where you've got a kind of sky, the mountains, and then the beach or the forest, if you will, in the foreground. You may recognize this 3x3 square from your social media or your camera when you're posting your own images. This grid pattern being a really helpful way to organize according to the rule of thirds horizontally. And then let's see, was there one more thing I wanted to, let me show you then. Let's take a look at the USA Today snapshots, a website I have linked for you over on Canvas, and I'll show you here on this video to just walk you through a few examples on different topics of mixed visual, textual, infographics that are just quickly presenting some information. And let's see if the rule of thirds or any of these other elements of the CRAP test, right? Contrast, repetition, alignment here, or proximity, which is clumping ideas together for your readers and also leaving blank space. Let's see how that is working out in these examples from USA Today. So here I am on the USA Today snapshot website, which this format used to be a way that USA Today would share data. As you can see, this is outdated. They collected these 299 snapshots into an archive on May 10th of 2015. So bear with the relative lack of currency here. But you see some, here, let me make this smaller for you so you can see the whole image. There you go. You can see here a mixed visual and textual way of formatting and sharing. Here you go. I'm trying to make it so you can see it, of sharing information in the infographic format. So you can see on the left-hand side, you have the source and the logo. You can see on the right-hand side the data and the visual. 2.7 billion was the legal U.S. sales of cannabis last year in states where it was permitted, and this was, again, accurate as of 2015. Just scrolling through, and you can see some of these are more and less serious. 90% of percentage of people who are looking to liven up their meal routine. This is from the Ore-Ida Bold and Crispy survey, so you can think about who the communicator is, what their motivation may be financially for selling those seasoned French fries, for example. You've got data on Rafael Nadal. I'm just going to scroll through, and again, you have this link in Canvas to give you an idea of how some folks are organizing, how USA Today has organized the high contrast colors here, black, red, and white, drawing the reader's attention. There you can see the repetition in the imagery here, increase, 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 right? You can see the alignment in thirds of this image, and let's see if we have a good example of proximity. Well, great blank space here with just this kind of neutral image text. So on that note, I want to show you two tools to get you thinking about potentially composing in this visual mode. I want to introduce you to canva.com, which is how I create my PowerPoint slides, so that may be familiar to you if you run across my template that I use. And I also want to introduce you to unsplash.com, which is a great way to access free high-resolution images. And so let's pop over to those tools really quickly. Okay, so I have linked this website, canva.com, which is a free resource. You can create a new account, log in, and you will have access to fully customizable templates for presentations, for social media, videos, print products, flyers, brochures, etc., all of which you may absolutely choose for your project for assignment. So if you are thinking about doing an infographic, just like we were looking at USA Today snapshots, you can type in here in that template infographic, see what pops up. Look here, you have 643 templates that you can click in, customize, change the color, the font, insert additional or different images depending on your topic. This may be a way to go, or presentations if folks would like to do that. I know a lot of people have with PowerPoint, Keynote, Google Slides. Those are all excellent resources, but I just wanted to make sure you additionally knew that canva.com is a free resource available. Check out these templates. I personally think they have just excellent design elements here. Again, fully customizable. You can change the coloring. You can change the font, incorporate, embed videos, audio. It's Canva. And then also for your information, I wanted to show you as well a great resource called unsplash.com, which I'm just going to click over into. Yep, unsplash.com. Another free resource. You can search for a topic that you would like to research. Maybe you're doing climate change, or you're doing masking on campus. The first couple of results are going to be paid, but if you scroll down, you will see additional results here that are completely free, high-res images. Let me let this load for a second. There we go. So the results for masking, you can see here, high-res images. You can scroll through, see faces, or again, tape, etc. Other kind of COVID-related items if you'd prefer those, if that's your topic. And then you can click in and you can cite the photographer, the artist on unsplash.com. Okay, now the last thing that I want to show you, this video is running a little long today, but the last thing I want to show you before giving you the time this week to start to think about composing in visual modalities is, and many of you may be choosing this kind of infographic or PowerPoint route. I would like to make sure and alert you to this critique of that format that occurred several years back. There's an accusation that you could induce death by PowerPoint, that essentially you can be so bored and you can so irritate your reader. Perhaps you have had that experience in another class, or hopefully not in this class, right? Where you have just been kind of flattened by that modality. And we have a TED Talk here speaking to that concern. We've got David Phillips talking about how to avoid death by PowerPoint, which may come in handy for many of you choosing that modality for your project for. So let's watch here a bit before I introduce you to the very last activity for this week. Here we go.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. There is a question which has puzzled me for quite a while, and that is, why do our PowerPoints look the way they look? Or rather, how on earth can we accept that they look the way they look? How can you do that? And do you know what's even more intellectually challenging for me to understand? Is how can a person sit over here in this meeting room with 10 others, observing this dismally bad PowerPoint filled with charts, graphical elements, page numbers, fading away 5-7 minutes, thinking of other things. You know the feeling, the boredom, the waste of time. This person, after 40 minutes, he or she will stand up, a bit dazed, trotting off to his own office, coming into his own computer, flipping it up, going like, oh my God, I've got a presentation tomorrow, and I do have a PowerPoint to build. Now, what is the chance that this person will build an equally bad PowerPoint as the one that he or she was by herself tortured by in the other conference room? Is that a big chance? Yeah. Now, what is that? Why do we do that? Is that vengeance? Is that where you go like, you did that to me, I'm going to do it to you, you got it coming, bro? Is that the case? I don't think so. I don't think it has got to do with vengeance. I don't think it has got to do with intelligence. I think it's got to do with something else. Now, my passion in life is the brain, and an even bigger passion than that is presentation skills. And I love combining these two. And about 4 years ago, I got so so upset. I blew my top. Because the way that you do neural executions all over our boardrooms today is just, it's not fair to our intelligence as being Homo sapiens. So I thought, there's got to be something we can do about this. So I searched the world. I looked for seminars. I looked for training programs. I looked for books that could solve this question for me. But there was none to be found. So I thought, well, I'll just do as Franz Kafka said. If it isn't written, write it yourself. And 4 years later, I have the great honor to stand here in front of you. What am I talking about? What are the PowerPoints I'm referring to? Well, they can look like this. Now, this is one of the top 3 universities in the world advising their students and their teachers on how to build great PowerPoints. I received this from a customer. And you've got to be semi-blind in order to even have something like this in the company. I love this one. This one was awarded the prize of being the worst PowerPoint delivered by a public CEO in 2010. It's a nice prize to pick up, isn't it? Oh yes, thank you. Well done, mate. And then you're like, this is bad. Can it get worse? Yes, it can. Now, this is the UN in Afghanistan, the US military, describing the situation in the area. And, well, there are no comments on that. But then we go this one. My God, David Phillips. This has got to be the thing. This has got limited amounts of text. It's got a supporting image. It's got a clear headline. This is the truth. Well, the thing is, if you recognize yourself in any of these, which I think you do, nodding away, I want to make you aware of the following. That if you've delivered a presentation with something like that behind you, 90% of what you said was gone within 30 seconds. And then you go, no way, Jose. That is way, I know it's bad, but it can't be that bad, can it now, really? Well, just let me give you an example of really how bad your working memory is, and mine, for that case. I want you to imagine this situation. You're at the train station, and you're waiting for the train. You can see it coming in the horizon. You're fiddling away, you finally find where you put your ticket, and you take it up and you go, car 5, C42, got it. Have you? You have absolutely no idea where you're going to sit, do you? So you're like, is this only me, or, well, I'll check, 542, you put it down again. Have you got it? No, you haven't got it. You'll do this on an average of 6 times before you sit down. I've seen people in the train go, 542, 542, yes, this is my seat. Check. Now, the bad news in this situation is this. You do not have a separate working memory for PowerPoint and a separate working memory for train tickets. It's the same dismally bad working memory for both activities. So I might be harsh when I say this, but there is one man on this earth who knows more about the brain than anybody else, one of the most leading neurologists called John Medina, and he puts it like this. And it's with his words that I welcome you to How to Avoid Death by PowerPoint. Now, my objective for this evening, for these 18 minutes, is to give you 5 design principles that will cognitively and psychologically optimize your PowerPoint slides. And if you haven't used them before, they will make a tremendous difference to every PowerPoint you will be delivering from this day and on. So let's start. The first one of these 5 is one message. I received this from a customer and I said, hey, we've got a lot of issues in here, but let's start with the first one. You got 2 messages. Let's move one of them out of the way and just bring one message per slide. So why should we only have one message per slide? Well, I'll give you this beautiful example. You're at this nice party, you've got the music going, boom, boom. You've got this person you're chatting away to, you're having a good time. Chat, 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 chat. Then you hear your name. You hear your name spoken somewhere. Your entire attention is now diverted in that direction. And then with this person, you're just nodding away, hoping that you're nodding in the right instances, yeah? Yes, yes, yes. After about a minute, this one stops talking about you, so you divert your attention straight again. Now, that person will then say, well, don't you agree? Well, don't we just love that situation? We have got no clue what they've been talking about. The same thing goes for PowerPoint. If you got more than one message, the chance is big that they will be focusing on this one and not that one, or that one and this, not this one. Just make it simple for human beings. Have one message per slide. We are extremely limited to understanding more. Let's move on. Go to working memory. I've already given you this bad vibe that your working memory is bad, and I'm afraid I'm not coming with better news. I'm coming with worse news. And it goes like this. This equation has the basis of John Sweller and Meyer. And they come to the conclusion that there is something in our brain called the redundancy effect, and it works like this. If you have text sentences on your PowerPoint, and you persist with the annoying idea of speaking at the same time, what will be remembered by the audience is 0. Or very close to 0.
Canva was a game changer for my business.
Now, why is that? How does that come about? Well, it can't look like this. It's just not practical. You can't stand and have this and talk at the same time. So what are you supposed to do? Well, use PowerPoint for what it's supposed to be used for. Pick it like this. Pull down your text into the documentation field and use the area up there for the presentation material. Short, sweet bits of text and an image. That is what enhances your image. That is what enhances your message. So use PowerPoint as it's supposed to be used. Come to the third of these 5 principles, and that's size. Before I go into that, I want to make you aware of something, and that is the following. Every time you open your eyes for the rest of your life, you will focus on 4 things. Moving objects, signaling colors like red, orange, and yellow, contrast-rich objects, and big objects for the rest of your life. Give you a practical example of that. I want you to imagine yourself being home with a friend, a really good friend. Now the television is on, but the sound is off. You're having a great conversation, but do you find it easy to not look at the television? No. Why not? Because it's got moving objects, it's got signaling colors, it's high in contrast, and they're usually very big these times. So, why not use this to our benefit? If you look at this, where is your attention drawn to? Without you even having a chance of controlling it. It's going to the big 3 all the time. Well, have a look at the practical situation. Have a look at this. Where is your eyes drawn to? Well, I can see that they're drawn to constantly to the headline. Now, how often is the headline the most important part in a PowerPoint? It's very rare. Even so, every PowerPoint template is built like this, where the headline is the biggest object and the content is the smallest, going absolute opposite to our biological reactions. So what does this look like if we just show you an example? Well, now I'll reduce the title and it looks like this. Do you see how your eyes now fall down into the content? Now they're sucked into the headline, and now they're fallen down into the content. So I can control exactly where you are. But why do people build PowerPoints where people will be spending 70% of the time on the headline when it's not the most important part? So what I want you to take with you from this is the most important part of your PowerPoint should also be the biggest, nothing else. Moving on to number 4, contrast. Contrast controls your focus. So what does that look like? For instance, if I show you a list like this, your eyes are all over the place because you don't really know what to focus on. So I'll use a built-in functionality into PowerPoint which goes like this. I'll show you the first subject. I'll take it away with contrast and I'll show you the second one. And I'll do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. You're now following exactly the white spot. If I do this, then, I can see your eyes just wobbling around, and you're a bit like, a kitten going after a little laser pointer on the wall, going like, where is it? I've got it. Because you're following where the white spot is and not the rest. Now this is a beautiful example. Please do use this. Use it because you can show amazing big tables like this if you use the effect of contrast, the principle of contrast. Look what this looks like. Your eyes are all over the place. You don't know what to focus on. But I just apply the principle of contrast and it looks like that. And suddenly you know exactly what to focus on. Here, they're all over the place, and here, they're exactly where I want them. Now there's a big, major drawback with PowerPoint, and that is that the majority of companies on this earth today, they persist in having white backgrounds in PowerPoint. Look at that. Oh, it's bright, it's shiny. Could you tell me who has the highest contrast, me or the screen? Well, the screen. Who's usually the biggest, me or the screen? Well, the screen. So the only option I have is dress myself up in signaling colors and jump around on stage in order to balance that problem out. And that is obviously not a good corporate strategy in the long term, would it be? I think the long-term strategy is to just switch it around. PowerPoint is not supposed to have white backgrounds. If I do this, your eyes relax. You focus on me. I'm the biggest object. I'm the most contrast-rich object. I got your focus. Why is that important? It's important because I always have been, and I always will be, the presentation. That is my visual aid. Moving into the last principle, that is objects. Now this is one of the most severe principles, and it goes like this. How many objects do I have here? If you count them quickly, you'll see that I've got 16. Do you see this little beauty at the end as well, which goes to page 12 of 95? What is that? Why do we do that? That only creates anxiety, if anything. You're like, oh my God, I can't take 83 more of those. But it can also create hope. Because imagine when it's 90 out of 95. Oh, I can see the light. I can see the end of the tunnel. Kidding aside, don't do that. Now there are so many ideas out there on how many objects you're supposed to have in PowerPoint. And once and for all, I just want to put my foot down and state to you that this is the perfect amount. And in order to do that, I want you to feel it yourself. How many objects are you supposed to have? And we're going to do that by showing you a couple of balls. I'll throw up the balls. I want you to nod to me when you've counted them. Simple instruction. You with me? Cool. Here we go. Boom. All right. Takes you about 2 seconds. Good. Well done. And your next set of balls, count them and nod to me when you've counted them. Here we go. Excellent, yeah. It took you about 1.2 seconds if you're normal, which about 90% of you seem to be. We'll have the third set of balls, the last one. Look at this, nod to me when you've counted them. Oh, what was that? I just pressed the button and you nodded simultaneously. That will, if you are normal, take you 0.2 seconds. 2/10 of a second. This will take you 1.2, this will take you 2/10 of a second. And for any one of you who you're good at maths, you'll find out that that number is approximately 500% difference. How is that even remotely possible? There are only 2 objects in difference. Well, might I suggest the following? This one you have to count, and this one you see. Could that be correct? So what you've just experienced is the following. That the cognitive process of counting takes 500% longer time, requires 500% more energy resources to execute than just seeing. So, what I want you to keep in mind at all times, what I want you to keep in your head, is this, which is a Swedish number for this. The magical number is 6. It's not 5, it's not 7, it's 6. And I want you to make you aware of this. When you go into a presentation in the future and you've built this amazing PowerPoint, if you've got more than 7 objects or 7 or more objects, you have to be aware that all the people in there, they have to use 500% more energy and cognitive resources to understand what's in your PowerPoint. Now, how do you think their energy-saving brain by nature behaves? Will it go like, ooh, I'll easily invest 500% more cognitive resources to understand this weird slide, or I won't. I won't. And you've just incurred death by PowerPoint. Now, what does this look like in real life? Well, have a look at this. 16 objects. Can we agree that that's too many? Yes, we can. So what does it look like if we reduce it? Look at this. We go from this to this. And this is where your brain goes, and this is where your brain goes, and I assume that in the future, when you deliver PowerPoints to your colleagues, to your fellow people, you want them to go, when you show them your slides. You don't want them to go, Now there is a, have you seen this movie, The Rain Man by Dustin Hoffman? You've seen that? It's beauty, isn't it? He comes into this cafeteria and somebody drops toothpicks and he goes like, boom, 247. It's amazing, isn't it? His perceptive limit is here. Your perceptive limit is here. Now what amazes me is that whichever country I go to, whichever company I see, it seems like they build PowerPoints in the hope that all their fellow colleagues are autistic or savants, which obviously is not the case. So, but then you go like this, but David, my God, this means that I have to have more slides. Yes, that is entirely correct. You have understood me clearly. I want to make one thing clear here, and that is that the amount of slides in your PowerPoint has never been the problem. It is the amount of objects per slide which has been the problem. The stupid idea that corporate organizations all over the world have come up with limitations going like, ooh, we've got this clever idea. You can't use 40 slides, you can only use 4. So what do people do? Well, they take the content of the rest 36 and they jam it in the first 4. My God, is that counterproductive or what? And we call ourselves intelligent? Alright, so compared. I started off with 95 of those. We ended up with 135 of these. And yes, it gave an immediate result to the application that we were working for. So, to summarize this, let's have some fun and do a cross-examination, because obviously I have to prove my point. Do you remember more than 90% of what I said? I'm not going to be that harsh. Let's do a crossword instead. It's going to go like this. Words are going to come up. I'm going to ask you to scream them out as loud as you can as we go along. How many messages are you supposed to have per slide? 1. Very good. I think you were looking for a different word there. What can we use to steer focus? Yes, and another one. Well done. What should we avoid using if speaking at the same time? Beautiful. And what should we strive? What kind of background should we have? We should have dark. And finally, now you can say it. How many objects per slide? 6. That is magnificent. Thank you very much.
Okay, folks, so thank you again for your time and attention as we walked through David Phillips's strategies here for how to avoid death by PowerPoint, which I suspect folks have some familiarity with and may be inclined to choose for their modality for Project 4. So you can employ these tips for infographics, for PowerPoint presentations, or if you desire for employing one of those templates on canva.com. So let's, without further ado, now 1 hour and 10 minutes, get you to your 4 next time slide and make sure you're all set up for your work for this week. For next time, please read chapters 4 and 14 in Becoming Rhetorical on analyzing and composing in visual modes. Work on choosing a topic and that medium that you want to compose in for your Project 4 assignment, whether that's an infographic, a PowerPoint, a podcast, a video, and we'll get into those audio and video modalities next week. Begin outlining pardon me, and curating any textual, audio, or visual content that you want to incorporate, including, for example, checking out unsplash.com for some of those free high-res images. Reach out to me with any questions and concerns, as always, at jsapio@utexas.edu, or we can schedule a time of your convenience to meet together, and I will see you next Monday. Take care.